the Center of Research and Advanced Studies, CINVESTAV. He has a PhD degree in biotechnological processes. Mario is a professor with more than 10 years of teaching experience, committed to teaching science and different levels of public and private education. He has a biotechnologist and bioinformatician interested in elucidating the mechanisms of molecular communication between organisms mediated by effectors, using computational and experimental tools for it. He's currently conducting research on the analysis of microbiota in human milk associated with non-communicable diseases and their impact in the development of the newborn. Dr. Aleman presents the topic, Climate Change and Food Sovereignty, Strategies for the Future. Thank you, Doctor.
Morning, everyone. I would like to say thank you for all the organizers to this kind invitation. Also, I would like to give an apologize in advance to all the native speakers because maybe my English isn't good enough. So maybe some of my words will sound weird for you. So just try to understand it in the context. I'll try to speak as better as I can. I don't know how can you hear me? Perfect, great. Okay, there's a small idea that I want to share with you about this idea. There's another way to think about the things. To keep it in mind, I would like to use it around across the presentation. All right. So, in order to start, I would like to start with this talking about the Earth. As you know, this is small planet called the Earth is the third planet of our solar system. But there's something peculiar in this planet, which is the liquid water. This molecule, this component, the liquid water, allowed to create self-organized organic systems. And these systems called life have an important system or open systems. They have the adaptability, which is one of the main characteristics of life, adaptability. They are around a lot of places in our world. As you saw in the video, since the big deep seas until volcanoes, around forests, and a lot of places in our world. But what makes possible this possibility to adapt to different conditions, environmental conditions, particularly robustness? In this graph, the authors want to show us how robustness is not affected the phenotype at all. You can see in this graph how serotonin is affected by polymorphisms around in the genetic level, but not at phenotypic level. And that is an important condition because robustness is one of the most important abilities of life because this exchange of energy. So if this robustness of life that allows adaptation isn't a big problem to the phenotypic level, what is happening in our world nowadays? You can see in these photographs, in these pictures, the same place with almost 30 years of difference. And you can see how climate change is affecting our ecosystems. The problem? It's not actually the climate change at all. The problem is the velocity of this change. In these predictions, RCPs are a measure of the emissions of carbon dioxide. So it's a model prediction of what will happen if we increase our emissions of carbon dioxide. So in this model, the increasing of temperature around the world will increase also the the extinction of organisms. So what we need to consider is how to reduce or stop our carbon dioxide emissions in order to make slow this velocity change in the climate change. Just 3 degrees increasing the temperature will let us the loss of 41% of mammals. But not only mammals. Actually, in this model prediction, if RCP increases, the loss of biodiversity will increase also, not only in animals, plants, and particularly microorganisms. So the problem with the loss of biodiversity in microorganisms is also related with the food security. In these gorgeous maps, you can see the more increasing of gas emissions will also increase the loss of biodiversity in red, losing richness. The more increases of gas emissions, the more loss of richness. And that will also have a consequence in food security. For a site, it will lose, it have effects on biodiversity. Biodiversity will diminish with the time, but also the problem is the change in crop yields. Without also the accessible drinking water and the rising of the sea levels due to the melting of the poles. And of course, all these consequences will have effects on food security. So we require an intelligent approach to confront climate change. In this picture, what I want to show you is how the most important crops around the world have been decreasing in yield production since 1960s. In this picture, you may see how maize is reducing the yield production, also for wheat, winter wheat, spring wheat, and also with soybean. But it's not only about these main crops. What will happen with several of the most important crops for Mexico? This is losing also the problem with the red tomatoes. In this graph, you can see how these tons per hectare have been reducing with the increasing of temperature. Particularly, this crop is, and it is not only the results in crop yielding, what is happening due to the climate change, but also several conditions about the crosstalk communication between organisms. Is not only the reducing in yield crops, the fruit at all, but also the leaves and the root system. What at the end, one of the consequences is the reducing of the size of these of the fruits. You can see here what is the control, the size of these fruits in the control. And when we increase mass emissions with the rate of RCP 4.1, we start to see a reduction in the size. But when we double almost the RCP 8.1 measure, what we observe is this increasing reduction in the size of this fruit, in these fruits. So one of the things that is happening here is related with the loss biodiversity of microorganisms, which is related precisely with the cross-talk communication between plants, microorganisms, for example, fungus and bacteria. Okay, so the problem with the loss of food security or the increases of food insecurity is also related with the food sovereignty. It means with increasing the dependence of the more increase of food insecurity, the more increase in dependency of food importations. At the end, the loss of sovereignty because the dependence of the food, the importation of the food. But the question here is, what is happening? What is different from the past and nowadays? If humans have been here for almost 3 million years, and we were just one of species among many, so what has caused a dramatic change in the planet temperature in the last 150 years? And at the first time we can think that one of the consequences of this increasing in temperature due to the global climate change and the warm temperature is, of course, due to the increasing of greenhouse emissions, deforestation, massive crops and food production, as well as contamination. But I really believe that is something behind that maybe not everyone is paying attention at all. The more developed the countries, if it's possible to say it like that, the more developed the countries, the more idea about consumerisms. And it's related also with the increasing in mass emissions of carbon dioxide. So, the most developed countries characterized by higher rates of consumerism tend to produce the highest level of carbon dioxide emissions. Let's pay attention just this quick video. I really like what is happening and illustrates very well what I want to say about the consumerisms that is not specifically or is not clear to everyone, at least not at the first moment. Science, for a long time, was part of this mechanism to increase value for life. But sometimes, many times, science has been prostituted also in order to create innovative products, but creating an idea of new needs, unnecessary needs. Clear example is what is happening with the cell phones. A new cell phone is produced in 2020, but the next year we need a new, better model, and next year we have a new, better model, and the next year we have a new, better model. And it is not only happening with cell phones, it's also happening with food, it's also happening with clothes, it's also happening with almost every single thing around our life. One, maybe you are related or are you familiar with this idea? There is a company that uses gorgeous fruit, red fruit, and it's usually a mechanism that is continuous. The version 10, the version 11, the version 14, the version 15, and actually it's not something different at all. It's just creating a need. And at the end of this video, not only all companies uses science not only to increase their sales, but also there's a mask about the idea to increase our sales. In this video of soda, they are trying to show us how they're gonna reduce plastic contamination. They create a myth about plastic recycling. And it seems that it's a good idea. It seems that it's gonna solve the problem. And if we are part of this company, we're gonna solve, we're gonna be part of the problem. We're gonna be part of solution. Could be. Okay. Yeah, but recycling PET or recycling plastic particularly is a myth. You can see in this graph the production of plastic, particularly PET, from 1950s and until 2019. About this is the global production of plastic, particularly PET, and this in light blue is the global recycling. So clearly, recycling is not at all a solution. It is, it's gonna help, maybe yes, but it's not the solution. Most of the ideas of plastic bags, recycling plastics, at the end, we're gonna have tons and tons of materials accumulating around the world. And we are part of this myth, of this idea about reduce, reduce, and recycle. So thinking about if you put the trash on the boat, and that's gonna help, but because it is out of your eyes, it's just out of your vision. You may say I'm an ecologist. I'm helping the ecosystem because I do not buy a plastic thing, and I'm gonna use or reuse some stuff. But actually, at the end, we continue with tons and tons of materials. So something is happening. My question is, if the underlying issue is not the rate of carbon dioxide emissions, but the mindset, so the idea, the consumerism we have behind, what should be the solution? Another way. There's another way to think about the things. I think one of the important ideas that I want to share with you is we need to change our mind. If we try to work redesign the way we do the things as a scientist, but also consider the reintegration, because the problem with the trash, all the problem that we have about the climate change is not only the accumulation, but the problem is that we are taking off the energy, and we never go back to the energy, this energy to the ecosystem. So we need to redesign in order to reintegrate to the nature. And for this, the proposal is biotechnology. Not only food biotechnology, but a lot of tools around biotechnology that can help as a mechanism to address this big problem. Since the beginning, since the base. First, the idea behind the consumerism, but also redesigning and reintegrating to the nature. Biotechnology can be a tool. And there are several ideas that now are commercially available on the market. This company is Perfect Day, which is in California, and they are producing milk in the lab. their modified organisms are able to produce milk in their total sense idea of milk. All the components of milk are there, are present. And they are producing ice cream that is already available on the market. So in this way, we're going to reduce carbon dioxide emissions due to the to cause. Also, this other company, Microworks, is developing a new mechanism of new leather products based on fungi. These modifications lead not only to reduce also the production of a lot of organisms that we use for leather, but also these products are able to be reintegrated to the nature, thinking again, redesign to reintegrate. This is one of the better ideas that I ever met last Tuesday. I got to visit of one of my lab partners, Dr. Villalobos, and he showed us especially what is working in this laboratory of glass in Berkeley, at Berkeley. So they are working with a fungus, a gorgeous fungus, this one, which is called Neurospora crassa. Neurospora crassa has been modified to produce this. This is not a meat at all. This is fungus. And they are changing not only the texture, but also the taste. This fungus is able to produce heme groups. I don't know if it is clear that. It's heme groups in order to taste as blood. So, okay, so this is already on the market also, and it's just like vegan food. But not only in the United States, especially for California. In Mexico, also, there are several groups of people that is making a difference. MPP Bioagro is located at Irapuato in Guanajuato. It's trying to modify how defend crops and how to increase yield production using this Trichoderma fungus. Trichoderma especially have a special interaction between organisms. It's a particularly cross-talk mechanism that I really like to understand. Trichoderma is able to communicate to, it's a mycoparasitism, but also it's able to establish cross-talk communication between fungus and plants as well as bacteria. So increasing yield in production when we use not only the microorganisms at all, but also using their metabolites. So two of the products that are in the market are spores of these fungus, but also metabolites. Metabolites that are increasing deep root systems, leaves, and yield production. Also, located here in Guadalajara, there's another company called Radial. Radial is producing a substitute of polyester styrofoam. As you know, styrofoam is one of the most contaminated products, but also have a very short life period. So what are they doing is using residues from agave production, of the tequila production. So the residues of agave are using in order to produce these new products and are covering via fungus, especially a pleurotus. So these products are changing the way we think and we saw the packaging. Particularly is the idea of them to change the way we packaging things. Radial Laboratories or radial biomaterials are also changing the thing we think about the things. Again, thinking not only redesigned, but also their products are able to be reintegrated to the nature. Also, as you know, there are another way to think. Human milk powder is also a new way to think. There's another way that we are changing the way we saw the nutrition. Also, we are working particularly, and I am very happy to be part of the Dr. Balcazar's group also, which we are working in this with all this microorganism that I told before, which is trichoderma. We found also that trichoderma have the ability to degrade polyethylene terephthalate. So PET, we have interesting experiments where this fungus is able to use PET as carbon source. And these gorgeous pictures let us show how this fungus is using PET as carbon source. Now we are working on it. Of course, what I want to say for all this, biotechnology and fungus can play a significant role in addressing food security and mitigating the global climate change, particularly if we change our minds. If we think when we are doing science, especially for this place when we are in a scientific congress, if we change our mind in order to redesign, in order to reintegrate to the nature, we're gonna start from the right way. It's important, or the goal is to reduce our carbon dioxide emissions in order to reduce loss of biodiversity. But it's not necessary to go back in the past and then we will not be able to use plastic at all. Maybe we can redesign the way we use this material or substitute the material at all. Again, what I want to say, there's another way to think about the things. Of course, what I think is fungi are the next revolution. My name is Iván Alemán. Thanks to be here, and I'm glad to answer some questions if you have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Mario, for your presentation. And this is the space for question. Do you have any question?
Thank you. Interesting talk. You started out talking about decreases in yield with climate change and increasing carbon dioxide. What is the primary cause of those decreases in yield? I ask because plants depend on carbon dioxide.
Yeah. What I think, particularly what is happening with the yielding crops, is not only the losing of microorganism biodiversity. We know now that soil microbiome is related with the food production, with the yield of production. So when we reduce microorganism biodiversity, we're going to reduce also the yield production. Or because we need to add substitutes, we're going to have problems with microorganisms. I don't know how would I say what an increase of pathogens, yeah. But also the problem is the reduction of organic compounds in the soil because the reduction of biodiversity. Also, what is something interesting is that the increasing of carbon dioxide emission is related with the reduction of a root system. Instead of being deep in the soil, the root extends radial. So I might think it's a relation to the capture of water. But at the end, the problem is that is a reduction in the root system at all as a mechanism to adapt to this change condition. At least for this evidence I show you about Chile.
We have all these new products that allow us to redesign and reintegrate, but how profitable is it, economically speaking?
Oh, that's a very good question. All right. I think the great difference in the price is the availability of the product on the market. All right. So the more presence of this product in the market, the price will decrease. All right. For several of the products that I show you, especially, they are similarly to the products similar in the market. Okay, so for example, actually, what I'm totally sure about this is about MVP products, which is this use of metabolites of trichoderma in order to increase yield production. The cost of 1 liter is 700 pesos. Okay, in relation to similar products in the market, which are from the same volume, 3,000 pesos. All right? So for some of the products are similar in the price in the market or even less. But it's definitely related with the availability of the products in the market.
Hi, good morning. Thanks you very much for the conference. What do you think about the microplastics general, plastics? Because recent studies associate disease with the microplastics.
All right, that's an interesting thing because it's actually one of our projects in the lab in this moment. The problem with microplastics, or actually the problem with plastics, it's that it seems that it will disappear in a long time. All right. There are several numbers like 500 years and the plastic is going to disappear, but actually that's not a reality. What is happening is actually microplastics and nanoplastics, which is we are not able to see it, but there are consequences. Which consequences? For example, some of the plastics are similar to human hormones. All right, so when our part of our body, it causes changes in hormonal cycles. But also there are problems with bioaccumulation, particularly for microplastics in the oceans. Yeah, it causes a bioaccumulation in fish, and then we eat this fish, and there's an increase in bioaccumulation in the trophic chain. There's an interesting article that shows how some nanoplastics are being part of the cells, increasing, I don't know if the word is rigidness. It is rigid. The cell membrane becomes rigid, allowing a lot of problems related particularly with the viability of some molecules that crosses the membrane. That's one of the things that I know they have a problem with the microplastics. And there's something that we are doing with trichoderma because we are testing exactly that point. We saw the size of the particle is related with the viability of use this plastic. So we do not know in this moment if this fungus will be able to use microplastics as a carbon source, as we talked, is part of our hypothesis, but at least we know that a big size is able to be used.
Hello, thank you for a very nice presentation. My question would be based on the fact that personally I haven't seen yet a technology which doesn't have negative sides. So I wonder if you're trying to project and analyze what might be the negative sides of your fungi technology.
The negative.
for the environment or for the human society?
Sorry, I cannot understand at all the idea behind. It's what is the negative sales?
No, negative side. The negative
Oh,
part.
the negative side.
The-
I can understand.
The
I can
negative
understand. Yeah.
consequences,
Sure.
if you want.
Yes.
Thank you.
Of course. What should be the negative consequences of this? That's an important thing to think about, because science with the time having shown us that we think in something that is gonna be good, and at the end, back in the or future in the time, we realize that it won't. Totally. That's an interesting point. What I want to say is we need to go at least slower to think about the steps that we want to do in science. One of the events that happened with the Green Revolution was the fast steps we took with the science. So what I think, to take slow steps, it's important, considering not also the precisely these positive events, but also the possible negative consequences in the future. Totally. What I want to say is that it should be careful with the steps we took.
So, speaking of them being the next revolution, what do you think is the main reason that it hasn't happened yet? And follow up on that, do you believe that it will happen?
Let me double check if I could understand you at all. What do you think about Green Revolution? No, could you repeat it a little bit slower, please?
Yeah, for sure. So you say they're the next revolution.
Oh, yeah, sure.
To me, that implies that it hasn't happened yet. And do you think it will happen? And why do you think it hasn't happened yet?
Oh, all right. Yes, sure. The clear reason is because we do not know almost anything about fungus. We know a little bit about fungus. For a long time, we have been working with bacteria, understanding bacteria. If we pay attention to the clinical level, a lot of sickness caused by bacteria are known and are addressed. But about fungus isn't the more. Actually, fungus is the more is the less understand kingdom in the nowadays. We know, actually, just for an example, at the beginning of my PhD, we started work with bacteria, with microbiome, especially bacteria in human milk. But 2 years before, we didn't know anything about fungus in human milk. In 2017 was the first time that somebody asked this question about what is the functional role of fungi in human milk, if so. So nowadays we know, and actually we have evidence of some isolations of fungus from human milk. But a couple of years before, we didn't know anything about that, about fungus. So one of the things that I'm thinking is we starting working with fungus in a lot of places now. But it's the time we are beginning to understand the real application of fungus. Not only the basic science behind, but the prediction or using science as prediction and applying this basic information we know about development of fungi.
Here. Oh, thank you so much for your nice presentation. I have two questions. So the first one is, I think that a point you make about the replacement of stereoform materials were very interesting. The question is, because for me it was not very clear, what kind of materials are you producing for the replacement?
Great. Okay. Particularly, I have a short connection with Radial. Radial is using residues of agave and some other residues, agricultural residues, and making a solid fermentation with a pleurotus is changing the form in a moment. There's a specific moment in the solid fermentation where the material is very soft. I don't know if that is the word, but what I want to say is malleable. Is that the word? It's malleable. So in that moment, they change the form. So then, a couple of weeks, the material is solid enough, and particularly the reducing water activity stops the growing of the food, the fungus, and reduce the possibility to be attacked by other organisms, increasing the life period of the product. We are working actually to improving the shape, the mechanisms, and obviously the use of this. Interesting, Radial won FedEx Prize precisely because the idea to replace this styrofoam as mechanism packaging.
Okay, and what will be the composition of this material?
All right. Particularly the combination, the percentage of combination of the agave residues and the other agricultural residues is part of the ideas behind the material. So it's not available to share these percentages at all. But what I can tell you is there are two residues, particularly agave, because the agave residue have a lot of spaces between the fibers, so that increases reduces inflammability and increases the lighter of the product. It's very light, and it's due to the agave residues. And the other thing that I can tell you is we use a specific species of pleurotus that have been modified. Well, not modified, but selected.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, obviously, this is not my area, but I'm curious because I understand that when you work with microorganisms, you for sure need material. You are utilizing energy, no?
Yeah, sure.
So, for instance, all the waste production and the energy consumption, would it be beneficial or bad for the environment in comparison with the conventional methods?
Sure, good question. And I think the answer is the circular economy. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, for sure.
Circular economy is the idea that we are behind a lot of these companies, trying to reduce the use of energy, or at least the equilibrium at the end. You use the energy will be the same energy you're gonna go back to the nature. Obviously, there are losses, and it's not a clear product at all. But the idea is to tend to reduce this storage of energy that we cannot go back to the nature.
Okay, thank you.
Hola. Acá. Sorry, I'm gonna do my question in Spanish.
Por favor.
Muchas gracias por tu presentación. Mi pregunta es, si bien la biotecnología es una ciencia emergente, bueno, no tan emergente, ya tiene varios años, y si bien tiene muchas soluciones para muchos de los problemas que tenemos actualmente, todavía se requiere como mucho estudio y muchas de las soluciones que se están proponiendo pues están en camino, ¿no? O sea, todavía faltan años para que se lleven a cabo al mercado. Entonces, por ejemplo, ahorita aquí en México existe una empresa que utiliza los plásticos para hacer gasolina. Es como tú lo dices, no es una nueva forma de pensar. ¿Qué piensas, por ejemplo, de esas nuevas formas de pensar? Que no es una solución, pero es innovador.
But do not solve the pero no resuelve el problema al final de cuentas.
Claro que no, pero tampoco estamos todavía con la biotecnología al final, o sea, al punto final en el que resolvamos todos los problemas.
No, pero justo la idea precisamente es encaminarnos hacia allá. Es decir, están pensando precisamente en resolver un problema agregando otro problema, porque al final de cuentas producen gasolina y eso también genera un incremento en el consumo, en la emisión de gases de efecto invernadero. ¿Por qué no utilizar una fuente alternativa de energía? ¿No? Que en realidad sería una forma diferente de pensar para resolver el mismo problema. El problema, a lo mejor lo que yo veo que está mal dirigido es al problema de raíz. Es decir, el problema a lo mejor no es la gasolina o la producción de gasolina, el problema es el mecanismo de transporte. ¿Sí? Y entonces, si nosotros ponemos atención en la forma diferente de pensar a resolver el problema de raíz y no la consecuencia, es algo de lo que quiero decir claramente en la plática. Es decir, la idea, el problema es que regularmente estamos resolviendo consecuencias y no el problema de raíz. Y lo que yo propongo es que nosotros pongamos atención al problema de raíz para poder encontrar una forma diferente de resolver la situación.
Ok, gracias.
Hola, voy a hacer una pregunta en español, pero te pido porfa contestarla en inglés porque tenemos muchos angloparlantes.
For sure.
Bueno, los plásticos o los bioplásticos tienen unos inconvenientes al ser, por ejemplo, de solo uso. Aquí creo que se conoce como telgopor o poliestireno expandido, que creo que haría alguno de los reemplazos. Pero la expansión o la implementación masiva de este tipo de plásticos tiene un inconveniente alrededor del contacto con alimentos directo, que es lo que hace inocuo el telgopor y por eso lo usamos aparte de los costos. ¿Ya hay algún tipo de indagaciones sobre eso con el fungi? Esa es una. Y la otra es, si no es así, ocasionalmente las aplicaciones pueden ser industriales o de tipo de electrodomésticos que tienen protecciones similares a estas y pues en lo que pienso es estaríamos invirtiendo demasiada tecnología, lo siento así, ¿no? Para empacar cosas tan simples como una lavadora, una nevera, pues no sé, un electrodomésticos y creo que eso también en la cadena de valor estaría ocasionando un problema. No sé qué piensas sobre eso. Gracias.
Yeah, sure. Actually, that's the thing why we started to apply this styrofoam substitute for packaging, because the idea of use it for food is not a reality nowadays, not in this moment. It's not possible because the safety, the security. Thinking about how can we address this problem about food? There are another company here in Guadalajara that is using residues of a kind of sugar. I'm not totally sure about that. Maybe we can talk about this later. But it's using residues of a kind of sugar, and they are changing this material to create knife and forks and all this stuff to eat. And they prove to be secure, and it's a different way to apply it, another mechanism. But I'm totally sure that we're starting. That's why my mindset is it's the next revolution. We are starting to work with this. We are there's a movement around the world that is now changing the way we produce the things. Of course, I know that there are a lot of time to walk about this. But I truly think the question, the thing before is not the product itself, it's the way we think about the products, particularly the problem of consumerism, the idea behind.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. I really appreciated how you had these examples of biotechnology, and we did discuss a little bit about the detrimental effects of biotechnology as well.
About what?
No, I just said your presentation was wonderful. I like the examples you provided. We discussed a little bit about the negative consequences of biotechnology, right? And I'm thinking about how that impacts farmers and people. In particular, like Monsanto has been egregious to farmers, but you know they have a lot of improvements in biotechnology, for example. So I was wondering how you think that biotechnology and food sovereignty can go hand in hand to empower farmers and increase their agency instead of, you know, being opposing forces.
All right. That's a big question. Because some of those negative consequences of the applying of biotechnology in somehow, somebody said in a moment, was the loss of genetic diversity in natural crops. Although when I want to ask something about that, it's how many or how much of this genetic diversity natural we're going to be lost for climate change. That's just a question to point it out. How biotechnology can help to these farmer producers? Well, I think the something that MVP is doing is showing this new technology that they are developing using the metabolized optical dermat to the farmer producers, showing them that they can reduce the use of chemical components to reduce pathogens and the reduce of using chemical products to increase yield production. That's one of the mechanisms that this company is using to address the problem with communication, showing them how we can do. That is something that most of the scientists we should think about. We need to share our results with the community. I think that is a way to direct the thing. And for a more clear solutions, I couldn't have an answer at all. You know, it's something that also it's here in my mind how these solutions can be real in the world and be part of this of the society more than just a big idea in our labs. That's what I can say.
Is there another question?
Hi. You say about crop yield, but I have a question. If we need to increase production or preserve the production of crop, because there are crop losses in both pre-harvest and post-harvest, up to 25 or more, as 50% of losses of crops. So how can we use biotechnology to preserve more the production and not only think about produce more?
Okay. If we need to produce or increase the yield production, maybe it's a tricky question, because we know hunger around the world is not only because the possibility to have food, but the access to the food, the distribution of food around the world. That's one of the main problems behind the hunger around the world. But the global population, the human population around the world is increasing, and there are some predictions about 12, 14 million years, million of people, million of persons around the world in the next 20 years. So maybe one of the things that we have to consider is to support yield production or to increase and reducing the space. That's one of the ideas that is moving on. Increase production, reducing the space. But as you said, most of this food is loose post-harvest. And one of I know about a product that is designed in Nayarit, where they are working with shrimp, with the shells of the shrimp, in order to create some, I don't know how do you say this, like leather, but it's not the word, like a small or a thin layer of this shell produced around some fruits in order to reduce the losses of our harvest. Also, there is something interesting. Let me tell you what is about the effectors. Effectors are small proteins that are exported or are extracellular and have a function in different organisms. This mechanism is used by a lot of pathogens in order to break down the host defenses. Curiously, these effector proteins have particularly chemical properties that allow it to be to penetrate the cell extracellularly without any organism mechanisms, just because the contact of the protein with the cell of the organism. All right. Well, this mechanism, this crosstalk mechanism, is not only used by pathogens, but also by a lot of microorganisms in order to establish a crosstalk communication, a molecular communication. We know the existence of a proteins, an effector proteins called small cysteine-rich proteins that are able to increase to turn on the defense mechanisms of several plants. And if we apply, thinking about it in this moment, if we produce these proteins, and then we apply it post-harvested, we're gonna increase the mechanisms of a lot of fruits, because you know fruits are organisms alive. So a lot of this defense mechanism is gonna be turned on, and we can reduce the loss of production. Those are at least two ways that biotechnology can help in order to address these problems.
Thank you.
Another question? No. Thank you very much, Doctor, for this great presentation. And we have an announcement about the visit to Tequila. Todas las personas que vayan, in English, wait a minute please. Todas las personas que vayan a la visita a Tequila, a 12:45 terminamos la comida. La comida cambió, ya no va a ser en el jardín de allá, va a ser aquí al ladito por las condiciones. Y vamos a tener que irnos casi a la entrada del otro lado del centro, porque ahí nos van a esperar los camiones. Entonces, 12:45 terminamos, nos vamos caminando todos juntos. Y a la 1 los camiones salen de aquí y dejamos el campus. Entonces, para que lo consideren, y cerca de las 12:45, si no están en la comida, pues se acerquen a esta zona. Y, Dr. Philip, can you help me?
Super. So firstly, we are going to be moving lunch today into the courtyard space right here. There's a little bit of drizzle, so we want to make sure we stay dry. That's the first thing. Secondly is that we all are going to leave together in a bus to the case study. Should we meet here at the registration desk? Is that your advice? Yeah. So we'll all meet at the registration desk, find a buddy that you don't want to leave behind, and then we'll all walk over to the buses together. So we'll meet at the registration and walk over together. Lunch will be, well, we have an hour for lunch, is that what we said? Yeah, so we have an hour for lunch, which is a quick lunch here in Mexico. So, but just be prepared to eat and be ready to move. Yeah? 1 o'clock we're going to leave. So if you are still hanging around at 1 and no one's around, we have gone. So please don't be in that group. All right, thank you.
Thank you. And in a minute, we will start with the session plenary in Spanish.